Hey, it is Love and Relo, the voice of the relocation industry. I am your host, Ben Cross, and I am joined by a special guest here, Tracy Oyekanmi. Tracy, how are you doing today?
Hey, Ben, it's so good to be here. Finally, I'm so excited.
Yeah, we've been trying to put this one together for a while, and it finally came together, and super excited to have you here. And so, where in the world are you right now as we speak?
I'm in the beautiful British Columbia, Canada. I'm in Vancouver right now, and it's sunny and beautiful.
What really? So I'm in Detroit and it's freezing here, and you're in Canada and it's sunny and beautiful. What
Yes.
what's the temps over there right now?
Well,
Just give me a
Vancouver,
sense.
Vancouver is the warmest part of Canada. So when people hear you're in Canada and they're like, "How cold is it?" I'm like, "No, we're in a very warm place." So it's like it should be like about 10 degrees right now. Like it's really nice and warm, and cherry blossoms and everything.
Cherry blossom. That sounds lovely.
Yes.
All right, here we got LinkedIn Live going here, and I'm just waiting for folks to come in here.
Okay.
So and go ahead if you want to, Tracy. Go ahead and share it real quick so your folks know that we're on right now. Take
Yes, I'm
take a
just doing that
moment.
as well.
Cool, yeah. And then as people come in, we'll go ahead and recognize them. And Stefan is in here. Great to see you, Tracy, he says.
Hey, Stefan, thank you for joining.
And I gotta say, I gotta shout out Stefan, okay? For anybody who hasn't seen Stefan dance with his daughter, did you see this video?
That,
This
yes,
on
it was
fire.
absolutely trending.
That
So
was
beautiful.
wild. It was
Mhm.
great. I love seeing a dad just, and just invest in his kids and just like nobody's watching and just say, I'm gonna let it all hang out.
Yeah,
I respect that so much here.
we're all going back to the simple things now, just spending time with those we love. Like a lot of people can't be with their family right now. So if you have that opportunity, just spend that time. It might be noisy, it might be crazy, hectic, but enjoy it for
Yeah.
a while. Yeah.
How is your life right now? How are you coping with COVID right now? What's the
Oh,
impact like in Canada as well right now?
oh,
We don't.
it's been we noticed it early enough. So before they closed the US and Canada border, there was already like stay at home and things like that. So they're already putting measures in place. So it wasn't so hard for us to just, so we only just go out when we need to get groceries, basically. And then we're home. So I have meetings back to back. And then my husband is working. I have a toddler. He's 18 months. So you just might
Oh,
hear him screaming in the background, but
mine too. Mine just woke up and came down from a nap, so I'm
okay.
I'm sure he's gonna want to contribute here as well. So
So
that's
we're making
awesome.
it work. That's the new normal now. So we're making it work.
Yeah, exactly. So, for folks who don't know your story, or I want to give them a little bit of a background. Okay,
Okay.
how did you come to this point in your life? You have a podcast. You're doing some really interesting work right now, but how did you kind of get started? What was that journey like for you?
Thanks for that question, Ben. It's funny how, sometimes you've been in touch with a lot of things you've been doing over time, but you haven't really connected the dots until after a while. And that's what happened to me. I actually just connected the dots just recently when I started doing this work in terms of cultural differences and intercultural competency training. But my background has always been in PR and communication. And I was managing a lot of global teams back in Africa. So teams like Chevron, Twitter, Apple, but having their presence, their online and offline presence in Africa. And that's what I was doing. But as a little girl, my dad was always in international business. So we had like business partners coming from Italy, from Europe, from China, coming to the house. And me being exposed to all those kind of interactions and then working with those global teams, then now moving myself, that was just like, it just added everything up for me. So that's how I got involved in all of this. So both my personal experiences and then my professional experiences as well.
What made you decide that you wanted to? What made you decide you wanted to switch gears from being a PR and marketing person to getting into culture and cultural training and things like that? I mean, that's kind of a, I don't know, it feels like kind of a big shift for me. What do
Mm-hmm.
you think? How do,
Yeah, well, research has said that people would have at least 7 careers in their lifetime. And for so long, like over 10 years, I've always been PR, marketing communications, and I noticed the trend, especially when we had to do like media training and getting like business leaders and C-suite executives when they come to just adapt to the culture and just bringing them up to speed. But a lot of the concerns that they had was, okay, I know everything about the company. I'm representing the global company and I'm coming here, but I still have a lot of reservations about my leadership style, about my conflict style, about so many other things. So I ended up spending a lot more time in terms of like that cultural adaptation for them. And these are people who are the best in their fields. They know what they're doing. So they already know their work. It's just that interaction in terms of being very nervous about how they're going to approach different situations at work. So
yeah.
for me, it wasn't really a big shift. And then my last like role was head of communications for a consumer goods company. And then I got a partial scholarship in the US. So I moved to the US for school. And I knew like I wanted to do some other aspects of communication. And I even took courses from human resources and capital development, combining that with communications. And we were doing a lot of classes with multinational companies, maintaining a global workforce.
Yeah.
All of that, it still has to do with communication.
Well, so you mentioned something before, and I want to go back to this real quick before we get into your work today, because I think that this is a common feeling a lot of people have, where they
Yeah.
say, I know the material, I know how to do my job, I'm proficient at what I do, but I still lack confidence. And I still feel like people, maybe they don't respect me, maybe they don't listen to me, maybe I don't have credibility in the organization. Maybe that's attributable to my background, or you hear us about ageism, sexism, racism, maybe cultural blind spots, all sorts of things like that that people are overcoming. Um, how how does that play into things, and how do you address that and help people with that?
Hmm. That's a really great question because a lot of times some people don't notice these differences until they hit like a roadblock. And then they're like,
Mm.
oh no, so this is why I'm having those issues with this person. It's not like this person is a bad person or these people on this team, they're not willing to do the work. You might have shared beliefs. In fact, that's like an episode that is dropping this week on the podcast about having shared beliefs, but you have different ways of approaching that. So the way you approach hard work, the way you approach loyalty, the way you approach so many other things at work, collaboration and all of that, it might be different from how another person from another race or another country approaches that. But it still doesn't mean that you both don't believe in hard work. It still doesn't mean that you don't believe in loyalty or you do not believe in collaboration. But the difference is where this person believes in collaborative work, but they feel that they need to step back and let their leader take the lead. And then this leader believes in collaboration and feels that his subordinates should be able to speak up. And he's like, why aren't they speaking up? I remember I had an issue like that when a senior leader came in from Paris and he felt like each time I come here, nobody wants to talk to me. Like, is it that everybody doesn't know what they're doing? And I told him, I said, you see, it's not because they don't know what they're doing, but they feel each time you come, there's either going to be a layoff, there's always something bad that's going to happen. Have you noticed this trend? And he said he never noticed that. He just knew that if he needed to come for a meeting, he just hopped on the plane and came for a meeting. And I said, each time you come for a meeting, there's a layoff. So of course nobody wants to talk to you because everybody is scared that maybe they say the wrong thing and then they lose their job. And then he sat back and said, oh wow, I never thought about that. So this is how like the cultural differences can play in how our work is valued. And you might be doing a lot of work, but your leader might not see that work as being valuable at that moment. So if you're on the same page with knowing what your leader sees as being valuable, then you're able to make a headway and make the difference and the impact that you want to make in your organization.
Now, you mentioned your podcast. Go ahead and plug that podcast and let people know where they can find that.
Oh yes. So anywhere you listen to podcasts on iTunes, Google Podcast, Anchor, everywhere. Just type in Visible at Work, and we share a lot of actionable insights with a lot of international talent and expatriates. We also share stories with people who have moved to different countries and how they're adjusting in their career. Because at the end of the day, your career helps you, or whatever you do with your work, it helps you to maintain the lifestyle that you want when you move to a different location. And a lot of people don't even focus on that aspect of their lives. They might focus on, the house and everything you need to get, which is important. But if you are not able to, look after the home end, the front end of your work, then maybe your income suffers just because of that. But if you take that seriously, then it permeates into other parts of, you moving in and settling in properly.
Awesome, awesome. Definitely check out Visible at Work. I'm getting a little bit of feedback over there too. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna check in with LinkedIn here. Finally, the comments
Okay.
loaded. So I'm sorry
Yay.
if I haven't gotten to y'all yet. So I'm gonna go ahead and get some shout outs. I see some stuff on Facebook as well. If you're watching on LinkedIn or you're watching on Facebook, please go to Facebook, facebook.com/love and relo. Go ahead and like it, follow it. You'll also get notifications that way because sometimes LinkedIn has been a little weird with sending the notifications about the live streams out. So please go to the Facebook page. You can also Google Love and Relo on YouTube and subscribe there if you prefer. But when you do that, I get to show your comments on the screen like this from my friend Karen Lipowitz. Hey, hi Ben. Hey Karen, how's it going? Oded checking in. Hey Ben. Oded Carmi, Boston, Mass, checking in.
Hey.
Appreciate you, Oded. Yeah. And then let's go here to the other comments here on LinkedIn. All right. Simon Johns, hi from the UK.
Hey.
UK checking in. Stefan is laughing because we were shouting out that video of him and his daughter, which is such a
Yeah.
you got to watch that. Everybody's got to watch that. Stefan, put a link in there if you got it, because it's really, God bless you. Christian Hooferlu, hello Tracy and Ben, saying hi from Atlanta. Also a cultural
Hi.
specialist. Yeah. Lynn Greenberg, hi from New York.
Hi.
Amy Grim Whitson, hi y'all from Dallas, Texas.
Hello.
Hey Amy, appreciate you checking in. That's awesome. Haven't seen that name before. I love it. Andrew Bruzy, hello from Arizona. Andrew, you still hold up at the Bruzy Vineyards out there? You got to give us an update and send me a case. I mean, give us an update. Anita, thank God. That has to be true. I've changed careers thrice and I'm still in my 20s. So Anita is definitely hearing what you're saying there.
Yeah.
And then Sandra Clary, hi all, crazy weather in DC today. Great topic. I'm looking forward to this. And I think going back to, and I want to kind of go back to some strategies that people can use when they are faced with this feeling of knowing how to do the job, but lacking maybe some of the cultural fluency to maybe pick up on some of the obstacles that they're facing. I want to give some people some real strategies that they can employ. I know
Yeah.
there's some people out there that are looking to lead in a bigger way, especially in times
Yeah.
of crisis. There's also some people
Definitely.
that are looking to kind of brand themselves and kind of re-enter the workforce, maybe because they've been displaced due to COVID-19.
Yeah.
So love to get some strategies from you. So if someone's faced with a situation where they are struggling to and also there's our transferees, right? And you're
Yeah.
one, you're an expat, right? So you
Yeah.
move to another country and now you're thrust into a new work environment with all the different dynamics and office politics and everything like that. So you have a
Yeah.
new office dynamic, you have a cultural dynamic, you're new. I mean, what are some strategies, some real tips and tricks you can give people?
Yeah. So the first thing is not dismissing the experiences that you're having. Sometimes, especially like if you've moved severally, you might feel, well, I shouldn't be feeling this way because I've moved before. This is not new to me. But every location is different. And I think I had mentioned we had started the conversation before we came online that there are three stages of people who move. So those who move within a country. So say you move from Dallas to New York, even though it's Dallas to New York and it's in the US, New York is definitely different from Dallas. And there will definitely be experiences that will be different for you. So just acknowledging that
Yeah, I did
Yeah.
that move. I did that move. Dallas to
Really?
New York when I was 7 years old. I made the move from Dallas, Texas to New York, to White Plains, New York, and I was a young child, and it was a huge culture shock. I had a huge
Mm-hmm.
Southern accent with a twang, and people made fun of me for it. And they were like, "Do you like the Rangers?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I love baseball." And they were talking about
What?
hockey. I mean, I totally did not catch what was going on. So and yes, that's a domestic U.S. move. I mean, hardly
Yeah.
Nigeria to the states, but I mean, still, you know.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to
So
interrupt
just
that. Yeah,
acknowledging. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, true. So just acknowledging that there are going to be differences, whether it's just within the same country, there are going to be differences. And then the second layer is if you move from one country to another country, and there are also going to be differences with that. And then the third phase is there because with a lot of startups and a lot of countries now, they're doing remote teams, even though now everybody's virtual, but there's some companies that thrive on remote teams. So the head office is in San Francisco, and then you have the developers in somewhere in Germany, you have someone else on the team in the US, you have someone, and they're scattered all over the place. And there are going to be differences, definitely. And you just have to acknowledge first that there are going to be differences, whether you're moving locally or you're moving internationally, and then having that self-awareness to see where am I having issues with, and also what story am I telling, what's my narrative that I'm driving now. And you also have to build your credibility from scratch. Sometimes I've been in places where it's funny how a lot of people, sometimes people say, oh, I didn't know you could use this software. Have you used this before? And I'm like, this is what I've been using like way back from way back. Just because I moved from Nigeria to the US doesn't mean that I do not know how to use this software or all of that. And then they're taken aback. So just know that even if it's a local transfer or an international transfer, you have to build that credibility. So you can't expect your coworkers or your leaders to just assume that because you're good at your job, that's why you got transferred there, and that you have those qualities, you can't expect them to just know about it. So you have to, you know
yeah. And
yeah.
that's something, I think that's something that we all struggle with, right? I think anybody watching this says, I would love to have a lot more credibility at work. How do I get that? And I think it's so interesting coming from someone who relocates from another country who struggles with this. I mean, I think we all struggle with this. So help me understand, if you could, Tracy, what are some of those tips and tricks to building our credibility in an organization, whether
Yeah.
we're from another country or not?
Yeah. So in building your credibility, you have to find allies. So both in your business unit, maybe your department, find an ally apart from your team lead, find an ally. And also outside your department, you need to find an ally, even if it's just one or two people that just know you besides your name. So sometimes you might be talking about somebody and they're like, oh, do you know Mark? I'm like, oh, yeah, Mark in this department. And that's all they know about you. But let them know that you're more than just your role or your title, and get to know other people. So it might be something as simple as having lunch with that person. I saw something
Lunch.
where, yeah, I saw something where even now virtually, I think it was SAP, they're having like virtual lunch hours. So you select like who you want to have lunch with, and you just sit and have lunch together, like virtually over a call, and you just talk about anything different from work. So you don't have to wait until you go back to the office to start doing that now. You can send a message and just reach out, especially like if you're working with other people in other departments, cross-functional teams. Just send a message. Hey, how you holding up? How did you get your groceries? How was your Easter? And do you have any young ones? Did you do like, were you able to still do your Easter egg hunt? What did you do? And just find out how their day went. And you can take it from there. You never know where that conversation will go. And from that conversation, they might even find out things about you that you know how to do well, apart from your role. So when another opportunity comes up internally within the office, you have allies within your department, you have allies outside your department that can say, oh, yes, I know that Mark can do this. I know that Tracy can do that. And,
Yeah.
that's how you can build. And then it's in layers. So sometimes when I talk about credibility, sometimes a lot of people feel they have to build this kind of big credibility. Just start in layers. Relationships are built in layers. It doesn't happen overnight. So that's the best way to start.
I think that's so interesting. You mentioned lunch because as I was asking the question, my thought went to lunch also. And lunch
Mm-hmm.
is such a simple act, but it's such a when you break bread with people. We have a saying. Here when you break bread with somebody, you really sit down and you open up and you see people as they are and in a candid moment. I think when we're eating, I mean,
Yeah.
nobody looks good eating, right? So it's always like a candid moment. It's you can't be super glossy and finished in that moment. So I used to go to lunch almost every day, you know,
Yeah.
um, with people at all my previous companies, and I would form very strong networks that way.
Yeah.
A couple of observations. At my current company, lunch is going to lunch with people is kind of discouraged, actually, which
Oh
I
wow.
find very interesting. Yeah. And the other thing I noticed as I look back on my lunch loops, we would call them. We'd have like the group of people we go to lunch with. And I have multiple kind of groups of people, and they're kind of turn into like kind of cliques, which are
Yeah.
good from a developing your tribe and your thing like that. But I got to admit, just being totally open, I would not often go to lunch with women because
Okay.
I found it was kind of like weird asking a woman to lunch. It felt like,
Feels like a date.
yeah, it felt kind of inappropriate almost. Or sometimes I would ask them because like, oh, you like Thai food? I like Thai food. Hey, you want to go get Thai food? And sometimes they would be like, I'm not, and I'm just like, and then I started thinking, I'm like, is it because I'm a guy? Is it because they feel weird? Is it like, so I don't know why I'm sharing that. I'm just sharing that as an observation of my own. So then I'd end up going out with a bunch of guys to lunch all the time, and then
Yeah.
you worry about kind of creating the wrong types of clubs and cliques and not, you know
Yeah.
what I mean, and not shaking it
Yeah.
up. And
Yeah.
so, do you ever see anything like that? I mean, do you ever see people kind of clicking up in kind of groups that aren't well mixed and diverse?
Yeah, yes, definitely. And one of the things about, having that intercultural competence is also knowing when you need to collaborate and also knowing when you need to self-advocate. So there comes a time where you need to like speak up for yourself, and then there comes a time where you need to just lean back and then lean on the strengths of others. So if you notice that there's this bro code where a lot of guys are just together and you're a lady, you want to know what's happening because a lot of important information really gets passed around during those kind of easy moments. And if you're not available or you do not happen to find yourself in such circles, you just things will just fly over your head. So one of the things that's even like coming on this show, one of the things, you mentioned how you wanted diverse guests and everything. And I raised my hand and I said, yeah, sure. This is what I do. And I think I could be a great fit for the show. So that is one thing I also encourage people. If you feel, and sometimes you might not even feel ready that you belong to that group, but before you even feel ready, just raise your hand and say, hey, what are you guys doing today? What are you having for lunch? Can I join you guys? Or where you having your drinks? I'll just pop in, or just say I'll just pop in for a few minutes. So you don't have to stay like for the full duration of lunchtime. But if you pop in for like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, you leave. Another day you see them, you just pop in for another 10, 5 minutes. They'll be a lot more comfortable with you because they kind of see you like almost every time than for someone who just comes in and wants to stay like the whole stretch, or for someone who has never asked to just hang out. So it doesn't have to be that you stay for that duration.
I love that strategy. You have to raise your hand. You have to kind of sometimes butt in a little bit, and kind of insert yourself into a situation. Just
Yeah,
like your story about the business person from Paris coming in, they're waiting for them to kind of talk to the employees. Not the employees weren't going to necessarily go to the person and strike up a conversation. And sometimes you have to kind of insert yourself into situations, and yes, it's a little uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable
yeah,
for anybody. But I was talking to my cousin last night. We were talking about her situation at work. And she's a young female, and she was talking about reviewing the job description after she was hired for the job that she was presently in. She's like, I would have never applied for this job. And she talked about the psychology that's different between men and women, of how a woman
Yeah,
feels like she has to check every box on the posting in order to
yeah,
apply. But
yeah,
now, I love hearing, women who come out and say, just apply. It's their job to tell
yeah,
you if you're not qualified, but apply, throw your hat in the
yeah,
ring. And I
yeah.
think it's the same
Never
thing.
know.
And I want to inspire people who are watching this who have been on the fence about inserting themselves. And I want to say, just take the leap, insert
Oh yeah.
yourself, because the upside is so great when you start building these networks, you
Yes,
know.
yeah. You just
I
never
want
know. Yeah. You have any question coming in?
well, I've got a couple comments here. I just want to kind of go
Okay.
through here and check in. I haven't seen any comments update on LinkedIn, so again, I'm not sure if LinkedIn's still having issues or not. If you're seeing any, Tracy,
Yeah,
go
that's
ahead and
fine.
bring them up. But I haven't seen anything since Sandra, so I'm gonna close this out again and restart it. I've been getting on LinkedIn's case. I've been in all in their help module, trying to get some answers here, and they're like,
You have
"Well, I
some
think it's
time.
fixed." Let's see here. All right, I'm gonna pop back in here. Here we go. There we go. There's the. Okay, beautiful. All right. Yeah, make sure to leave a comment. Hit that like button. Let us know how you feel. Go ahead and let your voice be heard. Victoria McCullough, hey, happy Monday. What's up? Let's see. I'm going to change this around a little bit too. We're breaking all the rules today. Here we go. Here we go. Let's get back to the comments here. Jason Rollins, hi, Ben and Tracy. Hello from Foxborough, Mass.
Hey.
Let's see. Hosea, hey, Hosea. Stay safe out there in Seattle, buddy. All right. Yaron. Hey, Yaron. What's up in New
Okay.
York?
Comments are coming up now.
There we go. Yep. I see him. Okay, here we go. Love it. Terry Head, listening from Virginia. Thanks, Terry. Appreciate you. Elena in Maryland. Greetings. Hey, Elena. Christian. Okay, we got some questions here. Beautiful. I'm going to come back to that. Oh, we got a few questions. Okay, this is wonderful. Brian Rivers, hi Tracy and Ben. Brian Rivers from Sacramento, California, First Tech Federal Credit Union. Thanks for the content. Appreciate you, Brian. Thanks for letting your voice be heard. All right, we got a question from Christian Hufalu for Tracy. Are you originally from Nigeria? If so, can you give us a top level overview of the differences between and I'm gonna work on this here, the
Okay.
Hausa, Igbo,
Okay.
and Yoruba people?
Okay. That's a very specific question.
Super
Yes, I
specific.
am. Yeah. Yes, I am originally from Nigeria. And before the amalgamation of Nigeria by the British colonialists, so they were joined together, the North, the Southern, and the Eastern Protectorate, to form the country Nigeria. And then the three major tribes that are known is the Hausa, the Igbo, and the Yoruba. And those are the tribes that a lot of people know. But Nigeria has over 255 tribes. Yes.
Wow.
And languages, a lot of languages. And but a lot of people just know like those three major tribes that he asked. And I'm from the south, and I speak Efik, which is a different language and dialect from my husband is from the west. He's Yoruba, so he speaks Yoruba. I understand a little bit of that, but that's how like the three major tribes were formed. And then, but Nigeria has 36 states right now. So yeah.
Wow. And I feel like that context also probably prepares you so well to understand the nuances of cultures when you have so many different tribes packed into a country the size of Nigeria. How big is Nigeria? Equate that to a US state for us?
Say maybe California. It's
California?
big. Yeah,
Pretty
it's big.
big, yep.
Yeah, it
Um,
is.
on on the western side of Africa, and there's
Yeah,
250 tribes, in there,
in just
and
one country.
so you have to be super conscious of the differences, I would imagine.
Yes, yes, definitely. So like all the isms you talked about, like ageism, for a lot of countries that have a lot of tribes like that, you have a lot of tribalism where people might see you differently because you come from that tribe, and you're like, oh yeah, you're more closer, you feel closer to me because you're from that particular tribe. So just having that idea about intercultural differences as well also influence like the way I'm very passionate about the intercultural differences with businesses working globally and seeing how it affects everybody, especially now where there's a fusion of people who grew up in a particular culture, but they're exposed to a different kind of culture. So there's a fusion of the Western culture and their own culture as well. So yeah.
Great question, Christian. Christian's actually going to be on, I think, on I think it's Thursday. I actually just posted the lineup this week.
Oh, nice, nice.
Yeah, yep.
And there are over 180 million people in Nigeria.
Wow,
Yes.
that's a lot.
Yep.
All right. Let's see here. Simon Johns has a comment off topic, but my neighbor. Oh, why you guys are really making me pronounce all this stuff? This is really is going to show my blind spots here. Off topic, but my neighbor introduced me to Jollof rice. Lush.
Okay.
What is Jollof rice?
Okay, so that's a specialty that almost every Nigerian. In fact, there's always this argument between Nigerian jollof and Ghanaian jollof or Senegalese jollof. So about three of the African countries are always struggling for who has the best jollof. It's almost like it looks like a paella. It
Ooh.
looks like a paella, but it's rice that is cooked in tomato sauce, like deep tomato sauce, and then peppers. Like you have the jalapeno peppers and everything. Oh, so good.
Kind of like a. It sounds like a jambalaya almost.
Yeah,
Like a
yeah,
Creole kind
yeah.
of jambalaya. Is there any give us a real quick overview of a recipe here for those watching out there. So you got some rice cooked in some tomato sauces, some peppers, anything else that goes in there?
Yeah, you
Any
can do it
meats or
with
anything?
chicken, you can
Mm-hmm.
do it with like beef, goat
Mm,
meat,
mm.
fish. If you're pescatarian, you can do it with fish, whatever you like. So you cook the stew. I can see you so
I mean,
happy.
it's too close to dinner right now. It is too close, Tracy.
It's, it is so good. Like it is so good. So
Oh,
you make the stew separate. You do like you blend the peppers and the tomatoes together, and then you
okay.
saute it with the fried onions and make it like you really the color just changes.
Yep.
Then you boil the rice and you add it together. You just cook it on a low heat, and then the sauce and the stew just goes into the rice, and then the rice
Simmers
takes
in
on
there.
the color of the tomatoes. Yeah. Oh, it's
Oh
so
my
good.
goodness. All right. We are getting it cracking over here. All right, on a Monday. Good comment there, Simon. Keep them coming, guys. Sandra Clary, great point about remote teams that span locations and cultures. I've experienced the differences of perception from the same words and approaches to business, and the
Yeah,
sooner one learns to read the culture and then adjust the approach, the more effective you'll be and the less likely to unintentionally convey a message that doesn't further your goals.
true, true. That's a very key point. Just having that knowledge and just knowing. You may not know all the nuances of a person's culture or someone that you work with, but once you're culturally adaptable and you know that there's a difference, then it makes it a lot easier to know how to listen more. And also, sometimes some people equate um, behavioral changes for cultural differences. So, for example, somebody might be a shy person and the person just doesn't talk. And another person from a different culture where they have more collectivism and collaborativeness might not talk in a meeting because they feel that they shouldn't be the one taking the spotlight. It's like a teamwork. And you as a leader have to be sensitive enough to know that this person is not a shy person. This person just has like the cultural influence of being more collectivist in nature than being shy. And you might notice that when you're not having team meetings, you might see this person more lively, talking a lot more like within a smaller group of people that they can recognize that they're from the same kind of culture. So that way you already know, okay, yeah, this person doesn't talk in meetings because this person has this kind of background. And then you
Mm-hmm.
can have like inclusive strategies to open up the floor to allow that person to talk. Sometimes it might just be as simple as just calling the person's name and saying, hey, what do you think? That way, like you've given the motion for that person to speak up, and then gradually that person becomes more feels like he or she becomes part of the team.
It's a great tip. It's a great tip, and I think leaders who are very mature in their leadership and very empathetic and have high emotional quotients will see that maybe a person's being quiet because they are just, deferential by, in their culture, and they will recognize that. And I've seen great leaders call on people around the table to get everybody's input, and I think
Yeah.
that's a great strategy. To Sandra's point, also, I think a lot of times people strive to be understood in the office or in culture or in society in general, but oftentimes it's much better to understand others, and
Yeah.
their understanding of you will come with time. It's a
Definitely.
lot easier to change your openness to understand others than it is for others to change their openness to understand you. So, great comment, Sandra. Sandra, you've really been
Oh yeah.
on fire lately, Sandra. All
Thank
right.
you, Sandra. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Hey, Ben and Tracy, Kelly at Shift from beautiful Arizona. Hey, Kelly.
Yay. Hi, Kelly.
All right, let's see here. Brian's got a question. Thank you, Brian. Tracy, do you feel submersing yourself into a culture virtually is realistic? And do you
Hmm.
see a new normal on the horizon due to COVID, or will employers and employees still have a major need for this in the future?
Hmm.
So let's start with the
So
first part.
a
Do you
need
feel,
for, yeah.
yeah, start with the first part. Do you feel submersing yourself in a culture virtually, meaning I guess kind of how we're doing it now, is
Yeah.
realistic? Is
Yeah. I think at some point or the other, when we're communicating with a lot of people, there'll be times when we submerge ourselves into that person's culture just to have an understanding. But you also know that you're not going to lose yourself when you do that. Because sometimes some people feel when they do that, it's just they feel that they're losing a part of their identity. And when they do that, but submersing yourself to better understand like who you're working with helps you in how you deliver in your work. It helps you in how you collaborate with others. It helps you in so many other ways. So even if you're working virtually, there are ways where you can do that to just draw out more answers. I'll give you an example. So there was a research that I read recently where two teams, one was an all American team. They're actually students from a university in California, and one was an all-American team. The other was a team from East Asian origin, so those from Korea, Japan, and China. And they've lived in the U.S. almost all their lives. They speak really good English, so it's not about the language barrier in this aspect. So they were given a task to do together, and the research was looking out for how they approach language, how they approach, working on that task. And it showed that there was no difference in terms of approaching of the task, but in terms of how they were interrupting each other and bringing out ideas, a lot of those from the East Asian origin were latching on their team members. So those from the same culture as theirs, if that person was talking, the other person was finishing the other person's sentence. So it was more like a team effort. And then the American side, they were, once this person talks, the other person was like, oh no, I have this idea. Or I think we should do it this way. So more of an individualistic style of contributing to the project. So it wasn't about language. It wasn't about, it just showed that even though these kids from East Asian origin who had grew up most of their lives in the US, they had that cultural influence where they believed more in their own style of collaboration was, just leaning back and allowing their team members to finish the work. So it's the same thing too when you're submersing yourself in either virtually or physically when you're having a meeting or you're working with a part of a team.
I think the way I would look at this, right,
Yeah.
also to kind of go back to something you talked about before, is if you want to form cultural understanding and bonds and relationships with the culture,
Mm-hmm.
going to lunch, and forming those relationships. Hard to do virtually. How do you understand
Yeah.
Nigerian culture without the jollof, right? How do you virtually eat the jollof? I mean, it's hard to do. So I think there's obviously cultural training that's done online. There are things like what we're doing right now, And I think you can
Yeah.
gain a level of understanding,
Mm-hmm.
but there's another level below that or deeper than that that I think is
Yeah.
hard to replicate, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
In
Yeah.
communication, it's actually called the like the culture iceberg. So you know how the iceberg is submerged, and then the
Right.
top level you have like the ideas, the worldview, the beliefs, and deeper level are the deeper sense of beliefs and values, systems, and all of that. So it's almost like that where it's the cultural adaptation. You only see a certain level, but it just shows like even if you're going to submerge yourself or being submissive in some way, it's just having making sense of the differences you see around you, that even when you see a black person, not all black people are the same. Like you can't just group everybody and say, okay, this
Not all
person is
Nigerians are the same, like you
yeah,
just
with the
proved,
200,
right?
yeah. So,
Right.
an African American, someone from the Caribbean, they have different cultures and different ways they approach things as well. And like even someone from West Africa, and then you have like the Ghana and Senegal and Ivory Coast, and then like Nigeria with 250 cultures. So there are a lot of nuances to all of this. So it's just making sense of what you see around you, and then you can take it further from there. Because you
Yeah.
definitely can know everything about someone's culture.
So I have a question. And there's some great questions coming in, and keep them coming here too. And we're gonna get to all of them, I promise. But I have
Okay.
a question. So you mentioned, well, not all black people are the same, right? So we use generalizations. And I actually made a generalization to you before we came on. I said, you said, oh, you pronounced my name right. I said, well, I had a lot of Nigerian friends, growing up and stuff, right? And I was like, oh, if I can make a generalization, I laughed about it. But we make generalizations in our head, and we use generalizations and stereotypes and things like this, which we know aren't great, but we use them as shortcuts because nuance takes time. It takes
Yes.
time to dig in and understand nuance.
Yes.
And I could spend 5 hours talking to you and I still wouldn't know the full you. So we
Yes.
use these shortcuts. My
Mm-hmm.
question is, understanding that there's inherent danger in these shortcuts and bias in these shortcuts, which does not serve to meet our end goals, as to use Sandra's words. Um, how do we balance the use of those shortcuts and the necessity to dig into the nuance to understand people on a deeper
Yeah.
level? How do we balance that?
Yeah. So just knowing that there are different levels, acknowledging that there are different levels, and how we can be culturally competent from these levels, just to know the practice of culture from a group of people, and then knowing the complexity of their culture, how you refer to them ignorantly. Sometimes you might just say, oh, why is your name difficult? Of course, like everybody has different types of names, or even like the way you mentioned your own personal experience when you moved to New York, and people were saying you had an accent, and then someone else from another country, you say you have an accent. So
Yeah.
it's the same thing. So even we all speak English, but if a British person was to speak English, it would be a different kind of English. So it's just knowing that wherever you come from or whatever culture you come from, it's different. It might be the same, which you generalize, which is easier because our brain, it just makes it a lot easier to just compartmentalize and say, yes, this person is like this, and taking the time to understand and break down the layers, it might be too much work. But just also knowing and acknowledging that this person is different. And then just finding out, even if it's just one thing, what makes this person different. And I also tell like a lot of international talent that I coach, telling them that you are different. What makes you different is different. But what makes you stand out as being different might be different from what the other person sees you as different. Can I say that again? So now
Yes.
let's just say, Ben, you know you're different. Now let's take it back to you move to New York again, now as an adult. You know that there's certain things that are different, the way you do a lot of things where you were, and then moving to New York, and you know you're different. And you're really proud of the difference that you make and what you stand for. But someone else in New York might see you and they notice something else about you that is different, not what you see as being different. So you working now in New York, you need to know, what do they really call out? Like, what do they really notice about me that is different? And how can I use that to my advantage? Than just holding on to this aspect of my difference that maybe they might not notice, and maybe I might not be able to use it for my advantage here in New York.
That's really interesting. I've got to think about that and process that.
Mhm. Yeah.
But it goes back to seeking to understand other people and how they see you,
Yes.
and how you fit into their world. And anyway, very, very interesting. Very, a lot of self
And how you
awareness.
can use that to your advantage. So you can always use your story to your advantage. You're different. You can use it to your advantage. So just helping them to realize, like to see it
Yeah.
and then use it
I
on
think
your
that's so interesting because when we talk about differences in this country, a lot of times we talk about the disadvantage of being different. But I
yeah.
love how you frame it and you talk about the advantage of being different. I think that's an empowering change in
Yes.
someone's
Yes.
mind, right?
Yeah, it does. It does a lot. It does a lot, especially like it even boosts their confidence when they see that, oh, because they're in a new environment and so many things are not like what they're used to, but how they can come up to speed, like what can I bring? Sometimes they feel I don't have anything to offer. And that's where the silence comes in and they're not really, and that's what I'm saying, like how research shows that it affects your productivity at work, but showing that you have something to, like you have something to bring to the table. Your experience, all the experiences you've gathered over the years wherever you've lived, has it plays a role in where you are, where you work right now. So you can bring that to the table when you're having a meeting and how you can contribute to the meeting. You might not know anything about baseball, you might not know anything about the NFL, but you might know something else that might be useful to the meeting, So yeah.
Right. And something you said before was about making sure you know how to position that and make sure other people know that you have that
Yeah.
skill and that talent and you can bring that to the table.
Yeah.
We've got some other comments coming in here and keep them coming. These are really great questions and
Oh
great thoughts
wow.
that you're sharing here. Olivia Barami, hi guys. Tracy, great to see you here.
Hi Olivia.
Katie Linehan, hiya from Connecticut. Happy Monday.
Yay. Hi Katie.
Katie is so sweet. She sent me a message the other day and it was just really uplifting. I got to
Oh,
say, this is so nice. I'm sure you have the same experience with your podcast too, but when you get
yeah.
feedback from people and you help them, isn't that like the best feeling in the world?
It makes it all worth it. All the editing and everything, it just makes it worth it.
It sure does. So thank you all
Yeah.
for the kind words.
Yeah. Thank you guys.
Roman Zelichenko, hi, hey Ben and Tracy. Hey
Hey.
Roman.
Hi Roman.
Christian Hooferloo, thank you, Tracy. Appreciate the answer. Fully agree, Tracy. Culture does not equal personality.
Yeah.
Interesting, because they're
Thanks.
different things.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
great, great. Let's see what Dad has to say. The uncomfortableness of cross-gender lunching discounts same-gender sexual encounters that may be equally inappropriate in a professional setting. Dad took it
Ooh.
there. All right. I wonder if such non-romantic professional invitations could be prefaced by an appropriate professional disclaimer. Yeah, so what if we all started saying, "Hey, this is a totally platonic lunch. I heard you like Thai food. Would you like to go with me?"
Just putting a disclaimer out there. This is
Yeah,
totally
right up
professional.
front. I'm married. You're married. There's no interest beyond the pad thai. Would you like to have lunch? Okay, great. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Thanks, Dad.
Just put it out
Uh,
there. And
Janet,
that's a very sorry to cut you off. That's a very, great question because some other people from different cultures as well, they bring up like when you give compliments at work, some of them are used to giving compliments about like, oh, you look great, or
mhm.
oh, you smell nice, just because that's how they, like, from their own culture, that's how they give compliments. Oh, nice shoes or this or that, and then they move to a different culture. So always advise that sometimes you have to look for something else that is not personal, that has nothing to do with their appearance, but
or
more
or
maybe giving
smell.
compliments. Yeah, maybe giving compliments about the intellect, so intellectual. Oh, that was a great idea. Keep it coming. Or you really brought your A game in this meeting, being able to think on your feet and come up with this new idea. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much for stepping up on the team and just pulling your weight. I appreciate that. So look for ways how you can give compliments that are not focused on their appearance, physical appearance.
You know, this is so funny because I was at work the other day, a couple months ago, and we were in a meeting. And afterwards, I'm leaving, and my coworker says, "You smell really good today. Like, what are you wearing?" And I'm like, I felt weird. I felt weird about that. I mean, I was like happy that I smelled good, but I knew I smelled good, and it's because I did something about it. So like, I didn't really need to be reminded, and I just felt like it was a weird. I didn't know what to say. Like, thank you. But it made me,
Right.
it made me feel a little odd. And so,
Yeah.
I know what you mean, and but yet when you appreciate things about people, like your instinct is to say it, and I don't know, it's just a slippery slope. And then now there's also the certain compliments have kind of gained a stigma with people,
Yes.
right? And it's
Yes.
like, if you say a compliment to someone, it may have some baggage attached to it, and be like, well, what do you mean?
I'm
Of
like, no,
course,
I
of
didn't mean
course.
that.
Yeah, of course I am. Like, why would you even? That's not even compliment worthy because you assume that I'm not. Like, so it's like, whoa,
Yeah.
all right.
Okay, back up.
But you know what? I've always been one to give a lot of compliments. I've always been one to be very open with people, and
Yeah.
I feel like if your heart is in the right place, and
Yes. Your
people and
motive. Yes.
and people know you and they know your heart because you form those relationships with people, um, that they tend to give you the benefit of the doubt.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
and I think
And
that
you
goes
can
back.
also reframe that too.
Hmm. It goes back to
So
the
like,
relationships that you were talking about building.
yes. So when you build the relationships, like Ben has mentioned about giving you that benefit of a doubt, because if you build that relationship over time, of course they know that you do not have a past record of being very careless with statements. So you
Hmm.
also get that benefit of a doubt. And at the same time, so you can reframe those kind of compliments and say, I like the smell of your perfume. What's that perfume? And then you get the name of the perfume. So you're not really saying you smell nice, but that could
That is
work
a good
well.
distinction. I like that because you're not
Uh-huh.
complimenting the person smell. You're saying the perfume smells good. Now my
Hmm.
son, my son's tapping on the glass. He wants to like play with me or something.
Okay.
I'm on a live video right now. Go away. Um, let's see here. We got a couple more here.
Yeah.
Oh, here we go. This is
Okay.
perfect segue.
Okay.
Tracy, please explain why Nigerian women look so fantastic going to church. Wow. So many amazing outfits. I look so dull. And go.
Okay. So it comes with the culture. The that collectivist culture of looking good, um, taking the same outfit or attire as the other friends and family members if they're celebrating. It just shows like saying unity, I'm one with you, especially with the Yoruba culture. They have something called the Ashwebi. So it almost stands like saying I'm in unity with you by wearing the same fabric as you. That shows that I'm in unity with you. And just looking good comes with the culture. Whether it's Sunday, it's almost like saying, I wear a lot of nice clothes to work. And if I'm going to pray in church and I believe I have a relationship with God, I also need to look good if I'm going to church. That's just the way
Preach.
that's the mentality, and that's how they view them dressing up so nice and going to church.
You're
Yeah.
you're honoring God. You're honoring your family.
Yeah. So yeah,
Yeah.
so that's it.
Now,
Yeah,
now let
and
me
I have
ask
some
you.
of those outfits too as well. But when it's winter time, like there's no point wearing that because
Do,
it's
now,
kind of cool.
do the cloths, do the fabrics match? You said sometimes the fabrics match. Are they like familial fabrics and patterns, like how we see in
Yeah,
Scotland with tartans and things like that?
yeah. So like maybe let's just say for example, you have like a landmark birthday coming up. Maybe someone is turning 50, someone's mom is turning 50 or 60 or 70, and then they get the fabric where maybe the children of those celebrants is wearing the same fabric. So all the kids wear the same fabric, and then maybe the friends of the kids they take like the same fabric. So you're like, oh, I'm a friend of the family, so I take the same fabric, and then everybody wears the same. So it's like a big carnival. So
Yeah.
yeah, and people they just have fun doing that. So it's almost like just saying, I'm celebrating you. I may not be able to buy you a gift, and but me buying the fabric with you and just making out time to make make a gorgeous dress and come and just show up just shows that I'm celebrating you.
Yeah, same thing. We do T-shirts for family reunions over here.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
same thing. You know.
Mhm.
Let's see here. Janet Turner, personal question for Tracy. Did you meet your husband in the U.S. or Nigeria?
Oh, nice. So we met in Nigeria and we were both living in Nigeria. Funny thing is, we have our siblings in the US and Canada. So I have my younger ones in Dallas and in Atlanta. He has his sisters in Philadelphia and New York. So we already had family in the US and then going back and forth for holidays as kids and all of that. So we met in Nigeria, and then he came for his MBA, and then I also got a partial scholarship, and then I came to the US as well. So then he got a job with an American company in Canada, then we moved to Canada.
Got it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Um, and I want to hear that story too. We're kind of running out of time here. I want to get to
Yeah.
everybody's comments and questions here because we got some really great
Such a great
ones.
conversation.
Yeah, right. These things always work. So I always come into these things like I don't really know what we're going to talk about today, but they always turn out to be amazing. So, all right,
Yeah.
Olivia Barami. One of the most powerful things we should remember is that we are more alike than we are different. I love that. Is that a Maya
Yes.
Angelou poem? Even with our
Thank you,
cultural
Olivia.
even with our cultural backgrounds, etc. That's something I realized by being around people with different cultural backgrounds, and we should use that as an advantage in personal and professional settings. I want to say
Yeah.
something about that, and I'm going to let you respond as well. I think it's so important to remember that we are more alike than we are unalike, right? And that I think that's a Maya Angelou, poem that she
Oh,
did. Apple did a phenomenal job using it in a commercial as well. That just brings a tear to my eye.
yeah.
But it's also important when remembering the political landscape in our country. Okay,
Yes.
we are not. We all fundamentally want a better life for our families. That's what
Yes.
we all care about. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
now we may disagree on how we get there. Right?
Yeah.
Some people might
Mm-hmm.
think it's trickle down economics. Some people might think it's trickle up economics. Some people might think it's, whatever. Right? But we
Yes.
all just want better for our families. And if we can remember that we're all just working to have a better future for our families, I think that we'll understand one another a lot better. And I hope that anybody watching
100%.
this, I hope everybody watching this can just remember at the end of the day, you may disagree with somebody because they're red or they're blue or they're whatever, but just remember they're just trying to make a great life for their family. So I'd like to hear your thoughts as well on what Olivia said.
100%. Thank you, Olivia, for that comment. And thank you, Ben. It just drives home a lot of points how people, especially, there's been a research that shows that a lot of people move for financial reasons or they move because they feel that they will get more opportunities. And a lot of the experts or, the international talent that I coach and I talk to, a lot of them, like you said, they all want a better life for their families and for their loved ones. And at the same time, too, people want to feel respected, people want to feel loved. So, irrespective of how that might come across, that's always a baseline. Having that mutual respect and feeling wanted and feeling resourceful and valuable and being part of something. So, for a leader, if you want your team to feel um, part of the team, feel respected and feel loved, just know what baseline for in terms of their cultural differences that you can use to draw them to feel part of the team. Yeah.
Yeah, the respect thing is so key. I agree. And in fact, that's a good segue to a question from Janet. With cultural differences, is verbal communication better than email or text?
Hmm. So yeah, that's a good question. So they're both verbal communication, only that like with email and text, that's more of influenced by technology. And but with verbal and non-verbal communication, when it's just verbal, where someone is talking, like the way we can see each other, even though it's virtual, I can see your face, I can see
Right.
your every part of it, like I can see the moves you make, um, a lot of the things you do non-verbally that shows that either you're in agreement or in disagreement, whatever I'm saying.
Right.
So verbal communication, when there's an addition of video or technology enhances verbal communication, that goes a long way,
Yeah.
definitely. Now with email and text, you do not have that luxury of having backing that up with any form of communication. And that's where there's some form of transliteration or translation is lost in email, where someone says, I'll get back to you, or I will talk to you later, or have a great weekend, and there's nothing else at the end of the email or text, then the person begins to read meanings to so many other things because they do not have anything else to support that style of communication. And especially now with a lot of remote working, I always advise this is not the time to feel like you're over communicating. In fact, if in your gut feeling you feel that you're trying to pass across an information professionally, and you feel it's not being pushed across, and you want to back that up with other forms of communication, please by all means do, especially in these times, because you really want that your message goes out there. So if you're sending an email and you're sending a text, I remember I used to have a German boss, and each time at the end of every email, he just put cheers, and then he has the exclamation mark. So that shows like, oh yeah, like he's excited to end this email or whatever he asked me to do.
Right.
So yeah, and then when I don't see that with the exclamation, I'm like, okay, so I need to find out what's going on.
Well, and that's why I think also emojis have become so big. People think they're
I was just
unprofessional,
about to add that. Yeah,
but they add context. They add the
yeah,
smiling face at the end of the sentence that lets you know if it was a joke or if it was lighthearted or if it was serious.
yes.
And I just think I think they have a real place.
Yes, emojis have a place in professional communication, especially if you're working remotely. So do not be afraid to use emojis. There's always an emoji for whatever you're talking about. And technology is supposed to improve our lives. And whichever way you can use technology to improve what you're saying and how to get your voice heard, then please by all means use that. So if you're on Teams and you're sending a chat and you're asking a question and you're trying to follow up, maybe I'll give you an example. So, two coworkers were working on changes on an app, and the other person says, "Could you give me feedback about the progress I've made so far on the app? What changes that needs to be done?" And then the boss replies and say, "It's all good," or like, "It's okay, it's okay." So if you've worked with your leader or anybody on the team, and you know this person, when this person says it's okay, that means it's really not okay. Like it's just basic. You need to improve. Then you know that, okay, I need to work on this. And if the person says, oh, yes, I really like what you did here, what you did there, then you know that the person is impressed. So having that like emotional intelligence to know how what you're communicating about can make a difference in your work. Now, what I advise that developer to say, like if you're sending that to your leader, you could type and say, what part of the can you check out the changes I've made on the app? What part of the changes I've made do you prefer or would you like me to keep staying? What part of the app would you like me to change? Because you know that your leader is not used to giving direct feedback, but you have to draw that feedback out of that leader so you can get your job done properly.
Right.
So yeah.
And that goes back to what you were saying about understanding other people and understanding how they see you and pulling stuff out of people. Yeah, I'd love that. I love that. We got
Yeah.
some Mel Michael. Hi there
Hey.
from Nigeria. Here we go. Let's see here. We've got some more comments. Nitesh Malhotra. Great perspective, great conversation. Actually, I think Nitesh is going to be on this week too. I think on Wednesday. Founder of
Oh
Six
wow, I'm gonna
Walls.
tune in for that.
Yep.
Hi.
Simon Johns, the hats though. He's still stuck on the hats, the wonderful hats of the ladies at the church.
Yeah.
Oh gosh. Elena Anderson Delay, thanks for your wisdom today, Tracy. I have
Thank you so
family
much.
in Benin City. Hearing you
Ooh.
talk about Nigeria makes me very proud. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. I feel so honored. Thank you so much.
Well, I think that's a good show. Is there any final words that you wanted to share with people?
Oh, well, I'm just
With
so happy that I was able to reach a lot more people today. And also just knowing that there's so many stories that need to be told, and knowing that you're not just working with people, you're working with people that have a myriad of experiences that you can also use to the benefit of the organization. So when you're working with a team member, just see them beyond just their titles. And also just to share that if you happen to find yourself in the situation where you recently moved and you need some advice, you just want to bounce off ideas. In fact, with everything going on, people losing their jobs and things like that, I'm even offering like a free session, just calls to chat with people and just give them some form of strategies to just help in whatever way that I can. So just send me a message and then we'll take you from there. But
That's
also
great.
remember, if you're a leader, just know that, your people have so many experiences that can be very useful to the work that you all do. Yeah.
I love the fact that you're offering some free sessions and free career coaching to people who have been displaced, because I know for a fact there's people watching this show right now who have been displaced due to COVID-19, who are looking
Yeah.
for a next
Yes.
chapter, who are kind of out there on a raft floating in the ocean of despair and isolation and self-doubt. And I really appreciate you kind of throwing them a lifesaver there. So thank you so much for joining us today, Tracy. This has been truly wonderful. I
Thank
really
you, Ben.
appreciate you. Take care.
Thank you, Ben. Bye, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. Cheers.